The heavy wooden doors of the Hamilton County Courthouse slammed shut behind us, locking away 25 years of my life. My former mother-in-law, Evelyn, blocked the concrete steps, planting her wooden cane firmly between us with a look of pure venom. She told me loudly that I was never allowed near her property again, shouting so everyone nearby could hear her. Behind her stood Darren, my newly minted ex-husband, wearing an expensive tailored suit and smiling as though he had just won the lottery. A massive headache throbbed behind my eyes, but I looked directly at Evelyn and smiled anyway. I told her calmly that the real estate transaction had finalized that very morning, meaning the property was already sold. Her face went pale as I added that Darren was no longer the chief executive officer of the corporation. Darren laughed out loud, claiming I possessed a wild imagination, while Evelyn joined in the mockery. I simply reached into my bag and presented the legal document, giving them 72 hours to vacate. 6 months before that moment on the concrete steps, I could not have envisioned this level of destruction. I had spent decades trying to rescue a marriage that had secretly withered away long ago without my knowledge. A relationship does not usually collapse from one massive explosion, but rather from hundreds of tiny, silent rejections. Darren only visited my office when he required a signature on corporate documents, and he routinely left me to eat dinner alone while he attended meetings. The turning point arrived during an industry awards banquet celebrating the 25th anniversary of our company, Sterling Industrial Components. I sat at a distant table in a simple green dress while Darren walked onto the brightly lit stage to accept the trophy. He proudly announced to the crowded room that he had built this entire enterprise out of nothing but his own solitary dream. The audience cheered loudly while I sat in total silence, completely erased from the history we had created together. The crowd did not know about the endless nights I spent ensuring payroll cleared every single Friday afternoon. They did not know I mortgaged our personal home during the economic recession to keep operations afloat. When cash flow dried up, my father sold his beloved farmland to provide $300,000. He told me he believed in my ability to save the operation, and that crucial money bought the survival Darren now claimed as his alone. Shortly after that banquet, Darren stopped wearing his wedding band during his frequent business travels across the country. One rainy Tuesday evening, he walked into the kitchen and dropped a thick folder right next to my dinner. He informed me coldly that he had already signed the divorce papers and believed this separation was the best path forward. When I asked what he thought I contributed to the enterprise, he remarked that I merely handled basic spreadsheets. 2 days later, I requested a private meeting with Claudia Vance, a trusted board member who understood the corporate structure deeply. We sat in a quiet coffee shop where I explained the entire painful situation while she listened intently. Instead of offering standard legal comfort, Claudia asked if I had signed the annual voting proxy for my shares. I realized I had completely forgotten about the document, which caused a slow smile to spread across the face of my companion. Claudia opened a thick leather binder and pointed directly at the corporate bylaws on page 32. She explained that while I owned 38% of the equity, my Class A preferred shares held 5 votes each. My father had explicitly demanded that specific structure when he invested his life savings to rescue the business years ago. Darren had grown comfortable over the decades, assuming I would always blindly sign my voting rights over to his control. For 17 years, the routine remained completely identical as I signed the proxy forms without reading the fine print. But this year, the document remained completely blank and unsigned on my desk, meaning Darren no longer controlled the company. My father had invested in my future, not in the ambition of my husband, ensuring the voting power remained entirely in my hands. I suddenly realized the trajectory of my entire life had shifted inside that small coffee shop. During the intense divorce mediation sessions that followed, Darren treated the entire process like a minor business transaction he had already won. When the topic of our old family home arose, he immediately dismissed the property as a useless money pit. The house required expensive structural repairs, a new roof, and completely updated plumbing that he refused to fund. He happily signed away all claims to the property, boastfully telling his attorney that he secured the better financial deal. When I returned home later that week, I discovered Evelyn packing my personal belongings into large cardboard boxes labeled for donation. She had callously tossed away my family photographs, the old pocket knife of my father, and early pictures of the company. I found a photo of Darren covered in machine grease while I balanced our baby girl, Chloe, on my hip. Evelyn claimed she was clearing out useless clutter because I would be moving away very soon anyway. That night, I overheard Evelyn telling a woman named Brenda over the phone how much they would enjoy remodeling my kitchen together. The cold reality hit me that they were already planning a future where I was completely erased from existence. The next morning, our outside accountant, Gregory Alvarez, called my private line with an incredibly serious tone in his voice. He revealed that he had discovered massive, unauthorized executive bonuses and luxury trips hidden within the
corporate ledgers. The situation shifted from a personal betrayal into a fight to protect the honest employees who relied on the business. Later that evening, Chloe came over and confessed through her tears that she had known about Brenda for nearly a year. Darren had convinced our daughter that I was fully aware of the situation and that our marriage was just a shell. I held her hand tightly, realizing how deeply his manipulation had infected every corner of our family. Claudia called early the next morning to confirm that Gregory had gathered enough evidence to trigger an emergency board meeting. I barely slept that night, staring at the ceiling while wondering if removing Darren would inadvertently damage the workers. At 49 years old, I understood that difficult choices rarely offer perfectly clean endings for anyone involved. I drove to the corporate office the next morning, observing the unsuspecting employees who had no idea what was coming. I took the elevator up to the executive floor where Claudia and Gregory were waiting with the official financial files. Another long-term board member, Julian Cole, arrived and expressed his discomfort regarding the mixture of divorce and corporate governance. I looked him in the eyes and explained that this meeting was about corporate accountability, not personal revenge. Moments later, my attorney called to confirm that the judge had officially finalized the divorce and the property deed. Right before the meeting commenced, an automated email arrived from the assistant of Darren, requesting my standard proxy signature. The sheer arrogance of the request proved that Darren simply expected yesterday to repeat itself forever without any consequence. At exactly 10 in the morning, Darren walked into the boardroom with a confident smile, holding a cup of coffee. His smile evaporated instantly when he noticed me sitting at the table, demanding to know why I was present. Claudia informed Darren that I was present as a director and a major voting shareholder with full rights. Gregory then slid the audit summary across the table, directing the attention of Darren to the unauthorized expenditures on page 4. The room became intensely quiet as Darren scanned the lists of unapproved bonuses and the luxury resort trip listed as a vendor conference. Darren threw the papers down, angrily claiming that I was attempting to destroy the enterprise out of spite. I looked at him and stated that I was protecting the company we built together, not the empire he claimed alone. I remembered the early days of eating cold pizza on folding chairs and the promises I made to the workers during hard times. Claudia placed the final resolution for the removal of the chief executive officer in front of every director. As the votes were cast, I realized this was the beginning of my freedom.